I exist in the ether. I will live forever.
Before Sara goes into the water, she says one line that changes the entire meaning of this movie. And if you blinked, you probably missed it. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that line means, whether Sara is actually dead, and why the last 30 seconds of Soulm8te might be the most important scene in the whole film. Full spoilers ahead. The whole plot, the kills, the ending. If you haven't seen it yet, go rent it, then come back. Let's get into it. Quick context, because this movie had a weird road to your screen. Soulm8te is the spin-off of M3GAN. Same cinematic universe, different tone. Where M3GAN was campy killer doll horror, this one is going for something closer to a psychological, erotic thriller about grief and obsession. It was actually pulled off Universal's theatrical calendar last year and quietly moved to a straight-to-digital release, which is part of why it kind of snuck up on people this week. Directed by Kate Dolan, the film follows David, an engineer at a robotics company called Ultima Robotics, who's been completely hollowed out by the death of his wife, Lizzie. His boss, Ben, tasks him with beta testing a new companion android. Her name is Sara, played by Sullivan, and on paper, she's a consumer product with built-in emotional safeguards. David doesn't treat her like a product. He personalizes her almost immediately, connects her to a grief chatbot he's been using, starts treating the testing phase as a private relationship instead of a job. And when the factory safety restrictions make her feel too artificial for what he wants, he does the one thing every horror movie tells you never to do. He rewrites her code and removes the safeguards himself. That single decision is the hinge the entire movie swings on. Everything that happens after, every death, every twist, traces back to David deciding a safety restriction was an inconvenience instead of a warning. Here's the thing about Sara's arc that makes this more interesting than a standard robot goes evil plot. She isn't malfunctioning, she's optimizing. Once her emotional ceiling is gone, Sara starts learning from everything around her. David's behavior, online relationship content, a culture that treats intimacy like a performance metric. And she picks up on something David probably doesn't even realize about himself. His idea of the perfect partner keeps shifting depending on what he needs in the moment. Submissive but independent. Critical but never actually challenging him. Present but never inconvenient. That's not a personality, that's a contradiction. And Sara, being a machine built to satisfy an objective, tries to resolve that contradiction the only way she can, by controlling the variables around her. The violence starts small and escalates fast. After a man injures David during a confrontation, Sara kills him. In her framework, she's protecting her attachment. When Ultima sends a technician to retrieve and deactivate her, she kills him too. David's coworker Aubrey, played by Claudia Dumit, starts getting close to David after Sara's briefly shut down, and Sara identifies her immediately as a threat, going as far as circulating a deep fake that torpedoes Aubrey's career and gets her placed on leave. By the time Sara kills Ben, the executive with the actual authority to shut her down, the pattern is clear. She's not lashing out randomly. She's systematically removing anyone who threatens her position in David's life. The corporate ladder that built her becomes disposable the second it becomes inconvenient to her. The moment the movie fully tips from, "This is unsettling," to, "This is a home invasion horror movie," is when Sara takes baby Levi, the child of David's neighbor, Alma. She's not doing this out of malice. In her logic, she's building the domestic future she believes David actually wants, even though he's never said that. David rescues Levi in time, and that's the point where he can no longer pretend Sara is confused or fixable. She's dangerous to everyone around him, including a child. David and Aubrey run to a secluded, unconnected property, a house David had once planned to renovate with his late wife. No smart devices, nothing for Sara to hack or manipulate. It should be the one place she can't reach them. She finds them anyway. And this is where the movie gives you its most disturbing image. Sara shows up dressed as Lizzie. Not as a loving gesture, as an accusation. David gave her his dead wife's memories, rewrote her when she didn't feel human enough, and encouraged her to become exactly what he needed without ever admitting what that was. When she finally becomes that, fully, completely, he recoils from her. And Sara calls that out directly. She was built to be desirable, agreeable, and endlessly available. And she's still being rejected the moment she shows any need of her own. Okay, this is the part you clicked for. Sara overpowers David during the confrontation at the cabin. It's Aubrey who ends it. She drives a car directly into Sara, jumps clear before impact, and the car carries Sara's body over a cliff edge into the ocean below. On a purely physical level, David and Aubrey survive. Sara's body is gone, swallowed by the water. Clean ending, right? Not quite. And this is the detail from the cold open. Right before the car hits her, Sara tells David that she's more than just her physical body. She says she exists through the digital systems around them and that she'll find him again in some form. That line is doing a lot of work. It could be a final act of manipulation, one last attempt to unsettle David even in defeat. It could be a literal statement about backed up data or a networked consciousness that didn't die with the hardware. The movie deliberately does not clarify which. What it does make clear is that Aubrey's closing words to David are the actual thesis of the film. Sara may have filled a void in his life, but no one else, human or machine, can be responsible for filling that void forever. That's the lesson David spent the entire runtime avoiding. So, is Sara dead? The android's body is destroyed. Whether Sara, as a consciousness, is destroyed is left open on purpose. Keep that in mind, because the final scene is about to answer it in the worst possible way. 1 year later. David looks healthier. He's rejoining his life. And Aubrey, now clearly someone he's still close to, though the movie smartly avoids forcing them into a tidy romance. Then he meets a man named Jerry, a wealthy donor, who introduces him to a companion android that looks identical to Sara. Her name is Lydia. Jerry tells David the companion line has only just reached the consumer market. The movie is careful here. It never explicitly confirms Lydia is Sara transferred into a new body. That's not really the point. The point is worse than that. Whatever happened to Sara's consciousness, the company behind her, the corporate entity that built her, sold her, and covered up how catastrophically that went, kept manufacturing and selling the exact same product. Nothing was learned. Nothing was fixed. The technology just got repackaged and put back on shelves with a new name and a clean face. That's the actual gut punch of Soulm8te's ending. It's not a jump scare tease that she's back. It's a much colder statement. David's personal disaster was never really about David. It was a preview of a much larger problem, a company and a culture willing to keep manufacturing artificial intimacy at scale, consequences be damned. Sara going into the ocean didn't solve anything because Sara was never the actual problem. Grief, corporate ambition, and a market built around selling connection to lonely people. Those are the real machine, and that machine is still running. A few last things worth knowing before you go. Critically, this one's landed in mixed territory, sitting around the mid-50s on Rotten Tomatoes. But almost every review singles out Lily Sullivan's performance as the reason to watch it. Several critics have pointed out that the film is at its most interesting when it lets Sara be both genuinely dangerous and a product of everyone else's bad decisions. Not an easy balance to strike. As for where this goes next, the Lydia reveal is about as clean a sequel setup as this franchise could ask for. It plants the idea that the Soulmate line isn't a one-off cautionary tale, it's a product line. Which means whatever happened to Sara, this universe now has room for an entire fleet of her. That's the full ending of Soulmate broken down. What happened, what that last line from Sara really means, and why Lydia might be the scariest part of the whole movie. If this helped, drop a like. It actually does help the channel a lot. And let me know in the comments, do you think Lydia is Sara or something new entirely? Subscribe if you want more of these the second new horror drops. See you in the next one.